Imagine a future so distant it feels like a myth, a time when the very concept of peace has been forgotten, and the universe itself is a battlefield. It is a nightmare from which there is no waking, a reality where hope is a dangerous illusion and survival is a daily struggle. This is Warhammer 40,000, the 41st millennium, where the Imperium of Man has fought a desperate, endless war for 10,000 years, locked in a struggle that has consumed entire civilizations. Forget utopias. Here there is only decay, only the endless roar of battle and the constant threat of annihilation. The stars are haunted by ancient horrors, alien empires and gods born from humanity's darkest emotions, entities that feed on fear, hatred, and despair. A million worlds, all bound under the Imperium's iron fist, survive on sacrifice and war, their people living in the shadow of oppression and constant threat. Soldiers die by the billion, psychers risk their souls to powers beyond comprehension, and ignorance is a shield, for knowledge itself can be a curse in this universe. Yet within this darkness, there are stories of heroism, ordinary people and superhuman space marines holding the line against cosmic nightmares, refusing to surrender even as the odds grow ever more impossible. This universe blends gothic fantasy and futuristic technology, where chainswords roar, faith-powered titans walk, and ancient relics are wielded as weapons of hope and terror. Its history is a sprawling epic, filled with betrayal, sacrifice, and ambition. To understand the eternal war, we must journey back to a time of hope that curdled into tragedy. We'll witness the birth of the Imperium, forged in the fires of ambition and necessity, the rise of its godlike emperor, a being of unimaginable power and vision, and the civil war that tore it apart, pitting brother against brother in a conflict that would echo through eternity. This is the story of how the dream died, and how hope was twisted into endless conflict. This is the story of the Horus Heresy, a betrayal so profound it changed the fate of the galaxy forever. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and the echoes of that war shape everything that follows. Before the Imperium, humanity's golden age was the dark age of technology, a time when mankind's ambition knew no bounds, and the impossible became reality. Mankind mastered science, created wonders, and spread across the stars, aided by artificial intelligences called the Men of Iron. Human civilization flourished, building cities on distant worlds and forging alliances with machines that seemed like friends, not threats. But the Men of Iron rebelled, shattering civilization and leaving a legacy of fear and distrust of AI. The machines turned on their creators, and the galaxy burned with the fires of betrayal and war. Then came the Psychers, humans with uncontrolled psychic powers, opening gateways for warp horrors. These new abilities, once seen as miracles, became curses as demonic entities poured into reality. Warp storms isolated worlds, plunging humanity into the age of strife, regression, superstition, and terror. Entire star systems vanished behind storms that lasted centuries, cutting off hope and help. Human worlds devolved, some conquered by aliens, others lost to barbarism. Once great cities became battlegrounds or ruins, and the memory of unity faded into legend. On Terra, warlords fought over ruins, and the dream of unity faded. Rival factions clung to scraps of power, while the masses suffered in endless conflict. For 5,000 years, humanity was fractured and broken, each world and island struggling to survive. Isolation bred suspicion, and hope became a rare commodity. The knowledge of the ancients was lost, replaced by fear and dogma. Science became superstition, and the wisdom of the past was buried beneath centuries of ignorance. It seemed humanity was doomed to fade into obscurity, its light extinguished by endless darkness. Yet in this darkness, a leader was needed, a unifier to drag mankind back from extinction, someone who could inspire hope and forge a new destiny from the ashes. That leader was waiting, watching and preparing on the war-torn plains of ancient Terra. In secret, he gathered knowledge, power, and followers, biding his time. The stage was set for a new hope. The first rays of dawn pierced the gloom, promising change. The galaxy was desperate for salvation. Billions yearned for deliverance, for a savior to end the nightmare. And the Emperor was ready to answer that call, prepared to lead humanity out of its darkest hour and into a new age. Out of Terra's chaos, one warlord rose above all: the Emperor. His origins are myth, but his goal was clear: reunite humanity and lead it into a new golden age, free from superstition and alien domination. The Emperor envisioned a rational Imperium, guided by the imperial truth to starve the Chaos gods of power. He conquered Terra with his Thunder Warriors, then looked to the stars. To lead his armies, he created 20 superhuman sons, the Primarchs, each a masterpiece of genetic engineering. But the Chaos gods intervened, scattering the infant Primarchs across the galaxy. Undeterred, the Emperor forged new warriors to find his lost sons and reclaim the stars. The Great Crusade was about to begin. Humanity's fate would be decided by these superhuman champions. With Terra unified, the Emperor launched the Great Crusade, a campaign to reunite lost human worlds and purge alien threats. At its forefront were the Space Marines, genetically engineered super soldiers, the ultimate weapon of the Emperor's will. The Crusade's early years were a whirlwind of victories, and as it advanced, the lost Primarchs were found, each transformed by their adopted worlds. Reunited with their legions, the Primarchs accelerated the Crusade's progress. Horus, the first found, became the Emperor's favored son. For 2 centuries, the Imperium expanded, optimism soared, and ancient technologies were rediscovered. But the Emperor's haste and suppression of faith created a spiritual vacuum. The bonds between his sons were fragile, and the seeds of betrayal were already sown. The dream of unity was threatened from within. Darkness gathered on the horizon. The Space Marines, Adeptus Astartes, are the Imperium's iconic warriors. Recruited from the harshest worlds, they undergo brutal genetic modification and training, becoming living weapons. Each legion, shaped by its Primarch, was a self-contained army with unique traditions and tactics. The Ultramarines excelled at strategy, the Blood Angels at artistry and fury, the Iron Warriors at siege warfare. A single Space Marine is worth a dozen regular soldiers, clad in power armor and wielding devastating bolt guns. Their loyalty to their Primarch was absolute, a strength and a fatal weakness. If a Primarch fell, his legion would follow him into damnation. The Legion's power was unmatched, but so was their potential for catastrophe. The Emperor's greatest warriors would soon become his greatest threat. The fate of the Imperium would hinge on their loyalty. The seeds of betrayal were sown in brotherhood. War would soon tear them apart. The true enemy of all life is chaos, a psychic force born from the emotions of sentient beings dwelling in the warp. 4 chaos gods, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, embody violence, change, decay, and excess. They are active, malevolent, and seek to corrupt the material galaxy, whispering promises of power to mortals. Those who accept are twisted into monsters, Chaos Space Marines, demons, cultists. The Emperor's imperial truth aimed to starve these gods by denying them faith, but he refused to teach his Primarchs about chaos, calling it only the primordial annihilator. This secrecy left his sons vulnerable to the gods' temptations. When the whispers began, some Primarchs were unprepared to resist. The seeds of corruption took root. The stage was set for betrayal. The Great Crusade reached its zenith at Olenor, a momentous victory that saw the Emperor himself bestow the title of War Master upon Horus, his most trusted son and general. With this honor, the Emperor returned to Terra, leaving Horus to command the legions. Yet this elevation sowed seeds of jealousy and bitterness among the Primarchs, who felt overlooked and slighted by their father's decision. Horus, now burdened with immense responsibility, found himself increasingly isolated from his brothers. On the moon of Davin, he was grievously wounded by a blade tainted with the corrupting power of chaos, and in his vulnerable state the dark gods preyed upon his pride, doubts, and fears. They whispered lies, convincing Horus that the Emperor was a tyrant seeking to ascend to godhood and abandon his sons. Consumed by anger and betrayal, Horus fell to chaos, and so began the Horus Heresy, a cataclysmic galactic civil war. Horus, now corrupted, used his charisma and cunning to sway half of his brother Primarchs and their legions to rebellion. Legion turned against legion, brother against brother. The infamous drop-site massacre on Istvan the Fev saw the traitor legions betray and annihilate their loyalist kin in a brutal ambush. The galaxy was set ablaze, and the dream of unity and peace died in rivers of blood. The war raged for years, tearing the Imperium apart and leaving entire worlds in ruin. Horus's ultimate goal was clear: reach Terra, the heart of the Imperium, and slay the Emperor himself. Betrayal and heroism, loyalty and treachery defined every battle. The Horus Heresy became the foundational tragedy of the Warhammer universe, shaping its grim future forever. The hope for a united future was lost. replaced by an age of endless war, suffering and darkness that would haunt humanity for millennia. The Horus Heresy ended at the Siege of Terra. Horus's traitor fleet besieged the Imperial Palace, demons walked the surface, and the world burned. In the final hours, the Emperor teleported aboard Horus's flagship for a last confrontation. Sanguinius, the angelic Primarch, was slain by Horus. The Emperor, seeing his son lost, unleashed his full power, destroying Horus but suffering mortal wounds. The Emperor was entombed in the Golden Throne, sustained by the sacrifice of 1,000 psychers a day. He became a silent, godlike figure, worshipped by the Imperium he tried to save from superstition. The traitor legions fled into the Eye of Terror, waging a long war for 10,000 years. The loyalist legions were broken into chapters, and the Imperium became a stagnant theocracy. The age of the Imperium began, an age of darkness, ignorance, and unending war. The dream was dead, only war remained. The Horus Heresy is not just history, it's the soul of the Imperium. 10,000 years later, the wounds of betrayal have never healed. The Imperium is a decaying empire haunted by its lost golden age. Technology is revered as relics, progress replaced by dogma and fear. The Emperor's dream was destroyed by his own flaws and the tragedy of his sons. The galaxy is a cauldron of ancient hatreds and desperate struggles. Every battle is fought in the shadow of paradise lost. The story of Warhammer 40,000 is about resilience, faith, fanaticism, and the corrupting nature of power. There are no easy answers, no simple heroes. The Imperium is brutal, yet it is humanity's only shield against extinction. In this grim, dark future, there is only war.